and welcome everyone to this evening's NYSF Connect alumni event. My name's Connor. I'm a 2016 alumnus. I've actually got a bit of an interesting story to kick us off tonight. Nate probably doesn't remember because I'm sure you've met a lot of people in your time, I'm sure. But you did a keynote presentation for an alumni event back in 2017, and I was cruising through my Bachelor of Science at the time. Didn't really know where I wanted to go, and it just so happens that you talked about your journey in going through the physics degree and at the Navy, meteorology, science communication, and I thought, you can study that? That is awesome. And so that actually inspired me. I ended up majoring in climate and weather and doing as much psychom as I can. And I'm now a secondary science teacher. So we've come a bit full circle here. So I'll kick over to Nate. Can you give us a bit of a recap? Just start us off with you attended NYSF. What did you do from there?
Yeah, so actually NYSF was one of those things that I hadn't really planned on doing. Like, there was no long view. I just got a tap on the shoulder at short notice from a teacher saying, hey, this is something you should have a crack at. And I did, and it was so much fun. University for me, when I went, so after I finished year 12, it was kind of a bit of a mess to start, actually, because I applied for the Navy, got knocked back because I had terrible eyesight. So I, in a frantic rush, applied for uni because despite all of the advice, I didn't have all of my backups lined up. Best advice for year 12s, have backups just in case you don't get your dream. Yeah, so I went to uni and did computer science for a year, which, as it turns out, was really, really handy in life, but I didn't love it. And it turned out I was doing physics as a fun backup unit. And after my first year, I sort of looked at myself hard in the mirror and said, hey, mate, come on. If you're doing physics for fun, you should just be doing physics. So I shifted in my second year into a physics degree, decided to get laser surgery, fix my eyes, joined the Navy, finished my degree there at UWA, and then went away into uniform, learned to drive ships for a while, which was great. Managed to go to all kinds of places around the world, and was having so much fun doing that until eventually the Navy said, hey, you're meant to have specialized by now and you haven't. It's time. Can you go be a meteorologist, please? Well, can you specialize, please? I said, yes, I want to be a meteorologist. I said, good, we need some of them, crack on. So I did that and had a whale of a time forecasting for places all around the world. Some really important events, actually, like the MH370 disappearance was one of the big standouts. Yeah, and then after forecasting for a little while, it turned out the Navy didn't have a job for me for a minute. So they said, take a look and see where do you want to work, anywhere across Navy. And I said, I've got a better idea. How about I take some time off, use up all my long service leave and go do a Masters of Science Communication Outreach. And it was so much fun. Got to travel all around the country doing science shows for kids in rural and remote Australia. Yeah, and then as I was coming back into uniform, saw the job for the ABC and thought, nah, they'd never want me. But I'll chuck in an application anyway, see what happens at short notice once again. And they said yes. And now I'm here. That's it. Nate in a nutshell.
Fantastic. Well, I want to open it up to our audience. So thank you for that recap. We've got a live Q&A feature here with Zoom. So if you've got any questions, please throw it in to the Q&A. And we'll start off with a question. Now, I want to know, what is the best thing that you have done? I'm sure there's quite a lot to choose from. What is the best thing you think you've done since NYSF?
Oh, now that is tricky. The best thing I've done. See, there's been so much. I think one of them might have been the time. There are so many. There's so many attached to Navy, but I can think of one that kind of connects in a way all of the things that I enjoyed. That was in, I think, 2008. There was a ship that crashed off the Queensland coast, off Moreton Island. Well, it didn't crash. It got stuck in a storm and lost a whole bunch of sea containers off the side of it. In fact, we just saw that happen this week with another tanker. But that particular tanker was called the Pacific Adventurer. It was carrying some pretty noxious stuff. So I rocked up to work on a Monday on a little mine hunter, just sitting in Sydney, and got told, hey, we're sailing today because this happened on the weekend. We're off to find those sea containers. So we raced up the coast. put in a little remotely operated vehicle into the ocean, which was still pretty wild, and started looking for these sea containers. We kept running over the tether, the fiber optic cord that connects it back to the ship, and they are super expensive. So after a couple of days of doing that, I reached out to our meteorologists in the Navy and was like, hey, we need some help. And they'd just come up with this amazing sea forecasting bit of kit, a bit of software that they developed with the Bureau and CSIRO. And so I sort of became, as the sciencey guy, became the liaison between the Mets and the rest of my ship. In a way, like got to do the communication and sort of translate some of what they were saying into briefs for the captain so we could stop running over these tethers, which we did. And we found a bunch of containers and it felt really good because I was like, yeah, science.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a really good segue. I really wanted to talk about just how important science communication is.
It's crucial. Science has for a really long time sort of existed in a bit of a bunker, where communication that's done is generally through sort of journal papers. And I'm talking for like the bulk of the 1900s sort of thing. Back in the day, way back in the day, when science first started, when it was still called philosophy, and you should try and at some point get your hands on some old papers. They are absolutely beautiful, like beautifully written letters, very poetic, telling stories about climbing mountains to look at stars and holding bits of equipment up, like just up to your eye at the right angle, and the star like glanced across your retina, sort of thing. Compelling things to read. And that kind of went away when science said, no, we've got to be serious, get it really, which is great if you're talking to scientists. The thing is, scientists don't pay scientists to do science. The public does, one way or another, either through a company, a private enterprise, through academia, or through the government. And in order to convince somebody that they should be interested in learning about the thing that you're interested in learning about, the reason why it's important, you have to be able to communicate that. And scientists are typically pretty bad at communicating. We're really good at using our specific language, our little words that have really deep, intense meanings for us, but are really confusing for everyone else. And so learning how to speak about big, complex things in simple and accessible ways, not getting it wrong, but pitching it right for your audience. If a scientist is talking to a government minister, you might have to use a bit more of that detail and make sure that you're really focusing them in on that. If you're trying to encourage people, hey, I want you to be part of this research, I want you to go out and count how many birds there are, you don't need to be using the big, long technical names. You just need to be saying, I want all of the little birds that look like this with red wings, or whatever it is. Communication is the only way that we can tell the world what we're doing and get them on board to help us do it.
Yeah, excellent. And you are, I can just, one of the best tips I ever got about science communication, which is perfectly exemplified in you, Nate, is to really just show that passion. I think that comes through in all of your talks that I've seen, and every day in the mornings, even just talking about the weather. I think that's fantastic.
Part of my problem with that is that I am actually excited, and I don't understand how people aren't excited, which is, I think, a relatively good way to come. Because if you're like, wow, this thing, everybody's like, oh, that must be, yes, yeah, okay, what? Mm-hmm. So having a bit of excitement about the thing you love, crack on, I say.
Definitely. We've got a question here from Tim, who asks, hey, Nate, do you see Australia switching over to being a full renewable energy user anytime soon? And if so, what do you think the best way of doing that would be?
Hi, Tim. Great question. I'm just going to caveat this by saying that, as an ABC guy, I talk about the science very much. Policy, I honestly believe we have to lead to policymakers, and I hope that they'll make the best decisions based on the science, with other things in mind. Of course, like we have to think about the economics and things like that. But in reality, do I think we'll get there? Yes. Do I think we'll get there soon? Not necessarily. The real driver for us will probably be a matter of economics when it becomes so cheap to do renewables that it's impossible to ignore. And when some of the big companies get on board, which is already happening in smaller ways than perhaps we need, but it's, there's positive movement forward. I think hydrogen is likely to be the big thing. The chief scientist certainly thinks so and has a really big strategy around hydrogen. There's a good chance that if we get on board early, we'll end up being a major exporter of hydrogen, which is a clean fuel, so long as you create it using clean energy. There's no point making hydrogen out of oil that you dug out of the ground. Ultimately, that's how it'll start. But ultimately, we'll be using renewables to make hydrogen and exporting that around the world. And I am very excited about that. I think even the crisis that we're in right now, there is a chance that this will help kick us into that. And we could be looking at a major hydrogen economy in the very near future.
Fantastic. I think it's a really, really exciting future we've got ahead of us in terms of that. We've got a question here from Nina, who asks, she is the only person at her school to be doing drama as well as physics and chemistry. And she's wondering how you went from being a meteorologist to a weather presenter. Were you always interested in drama / public speaking as well as science?
Yes and no. So first of all, Nina, do it. Drama. And actually, this is for everyone. Please do stuff outside of science. Because it gives you so much more of a broader understanding of the world and the context that you're living in, which is really important. And drama's great. I love it. I used to think I wanted to be an actor when I was a little kid, but I was very heavily dissuaded from doing that by my parents because they thought there was no future in it. So when I did science, they thought, oh, you'll never be on TV. Ha! Showed them. But I used to be terrified of public speaking, but I was always a bit of a chatty kid. It was probably not until I was in my early to mid-teens when I started doing some academic extension-y sort of stuff, where I was asked to do public speaking. And I remember actually, there was one thing I had to do once that probably really turned it around for me. I had to give 2 5-minute talks with almost no notice. And the 2 talks, one was on elephants and one was on Coke can. It was just a random group activity thing. And I didn't know anything in particular about those 2 things, but for some reason, that activity, I embraced it. And I was just like, I'm going to give this a crack. And in the end, I got told to stop talking, please, that you cannot have anything more to say about Coke cans. But when that happened, I found a bit of a passion. Public speaking, it's not scary. It's incredibly fun. When you get the little tingles, I get those still. I use that. That gives me excitement, not terror. And I think the only way that happens is by practicing and doing it and doing it and doing it. And I never planned to become a TV weatherman. I mean, it was a dream when I was a little kid, but it was never part of the grand plan. It's just something I enjoy doing. So if drama is something you love, absolutely do it. Absolutely. Because that'll help with communications. You'll learn to think quick on your feet. You'll speak clearly and openly and be used to dealing with crowds. Dead on.
I've seen some great science communication done through acting and singing and dancing. There's a whole plethora of ways it can be done. It's not just doesn't have to be just the typical sort of delivery in schools or delivery in talks. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you. We've got a question from Ainsley who asks, are there any things you learnt from NYSF that you still use or still think about in your everyday life or work?
Yes. I can't remember if I spoke about it in my chat earlier, but the one experiment, it still blows my mind and I still think about it all the time. And whenever I feel a little bit blur about the world, this always lifts me back up. Evaporating gold was the experiment. So we're at a university, in a lab, and the researchers got this jar, you know, like a bell jar thing that goes over the top, vacuum chamber, and they pulled a vacuum inside of it, and in the middle was a tungsten filament with a tiny bit of gold in the middle, and then they'd set up glass plates around it inside this bell jar, and then they turned on the tungsten. It got super bright, and the gold literally evaporated. So turning a gold into a gas, I was like, boom. And of course, once the gold was in the vacuum, it cooled and had to, when it cools, it wants to become a solid and a liquid in a solid. And when it does that, in fact, it might have just deposited. It might not have gone through liquid stage. I'm not entirely sure. Now I've got homework. Thanks. Awesome, Ainsley. I'm into that. But yeah, it condensed onto these gold slides. So there were only a couple of microns thick, this little layer of gold. And they gave us each one. And I've got it still somewhere in a box. But when you look at it from the top, the light that reflects off it is gold. But when you look through it, it transmits blue light. Gold transmits blue light. I was just like, what? I've seen so many amazing things. I've seen a massive vacuum. I've seen a tungsten filament, gold turn to gas, and then recondense, and then there's still something more amazing. Like, yeah, that's it. So I still carry that from the NYSF in my heart, and I think about it often.
That is amazing. I wish I had seen something like that. And well, my year sevens at the moment are just doing the particle model. I'll see if I can look up a demo for them, because I think that'd be a really interesting one to show them as well. Thanks for the inspiration. Leonie asks if you could give one piece of advice to students finishing year 12, what would it be? I think it's especially poignant given some of the year 12s that would have attended this year's NYSF that unfortunately didn't go through. So one piece of advice.
Do what you love and love what you do is 100% it. It's really hard when you're in year 12 because your parents, your teachers, grown-ups and mentors will have great ideas for you. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with following some great advice. And I say good. But I would absolutely recommend, I did it by accident, and I hope you do it on purpose. Hold one elective unit if you're going to uni, or one outside activity from work that's yours and yours alone that you do for the love. If you can make the whole thing about exactly what you love, brilliant. But not everybody's going to feel comfortable doing that at first when you're young, because you're used to being guided by adults. But find something that's for you. Like for me, it's so dumb, but that was physics. I also took French when I started at uni. And through my degree, like even though I did a biophysics degree, I did anthropology. I did some, well, I didn't actually do officially, but I sat in on linguistics lectures because I found them really fascinating. Find something that you're passionate about. No, passionate about is wrong. Not necessarily passionate about. Just find something that absolutely fascinates you and follow it, because you don't know where it'll lead. And when you go to uni as well, just keep in mind, you're doing your first degree. That's it. It's your first degree. If you want, there can be a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth. You can keep doing it as long as you want until you find the thing you love, or maybe you'll never find the thing you love, or maybe you'll find it at the very first day, very first class. You'll sit down and the lecturer will open their mouths and be like, that's it. That's me. Yeah, that's it. Find something you love and do it.
Fantastic. Thank you. So you've done a fair bit of traveling in your career, Nate. So what would you encourage our alumni to travel where possible? Obviously,
yeah,
once travel opens back up.
Yeah, definitely. I remember so just in my life, I was from Perth and we didn't do a lot of travel. In fact, NYSF was the first time I got on a plane ever and saw another part of our country, which was pretty incredible. Oh yeah, we didn't have a ton of money growing up, and if we were going on holiday, we were holidaying close to home, which is something that we'll all be doing for a little while now. But yeah, getting out and getting overseas and seeing how the rest of the world lives is really, really an eye-opener. I spent 6 months living in the Middle East. That is an entirely different experience, like streets away from anything we know. Equally as valid, equally as beautiful, and as interesting, but completely different. Same again through Southeast Asia, even Europe, which is we're very much based on. Like the way that we live looks quite European generally. But yeah, it's really amazing. The best bit though about traveling isn't seeing the places, although that is great. The best bit is about meeting people and getting an understanding of how other people think. Because people do think differently in different places in the world because they've been brought up differently with different cultural norms and religious expectations and all sorts of things. And the only thing that can do is help you to be a better person. Is by meeting other people, becoming friends with other people, and learning about how other people live. It helps you think. I reckon it helps you think a little bit more globally and a little bit more holistically about a lot of things, including your science. There's a lot of accidental and incidental racism, sexism, homophobia in science, not through intent, but just because people don't know to look for things because that's not part of who they are. I know there was an amazing story. I say amazing only because it's incredible that nobody thought about it, of some facial recognition software. I read this a while ago and I don't remember all the specific details, but essentially it had been trained on, it was an AI piece of software, it had been trained on a data set that just wasn't representative of all of the racial variations that this software would eventually encounter. And so it just failed to work because the people that had written it hadn't been thinking big and broad and wide, So yeah, get out into the world, learn stuff. You never know how it'll help.
Excellent. I suppose that relates into like having a network of people. Do you find yourself, or have you managed to build up a bit of a network, I suppose, like from NYSF or from any of the other things that you've done?
Yeah. So networking's funny because I don't treat it in the traditional way, I think, because I didn't have to for a long time. Being in the Navy, my network was sort of built in. It was my workplace, which is quite a large one. I think the place where networks come most in handy is in mentoring. And personally, I think it's a good idea to have an older mentor and a younger mentor. Now, that's hard when you're just going into university. So maybe this is something for on the other side of your degree. I have several older mentors and a couple of younger mentors too. Now, the younger ones are useful because they help you think in new and innovative ways that you haven't thought about, especially once you're in a career, because you are trained how to do that job, whatever job it is, and you're trained by people who have been doing it for a long time. And so you get given sort of the left and right of arc, like the sort of box that you should be working in. If you've got a younger mentor, especially somebody outside of your field, they can maybe help you think about new and innovative ways, tell you about the cool apps that the kids are using or whatever to help you learn new things and try new things. Having several older mentors is helpful as well because they've walked the path. They know where it is that you're going and what sort of opportunities are around. But more generally, building a network is really just about meeting people, being nice to people, having conversations, having chats. Because you never know. You never know. This is my other one big piece of advice, other than just doing what you love. Put your hand up for stuff and say yes. Even if you don't necessarily think straight away that it's the perfect fit. I don't know if that's right. If it's something you're like, no, that could be something interesting. It doesn't really apply to what I'm doing, but give it a crack. If it's not going to hurt you and it's not going to hurt anyone else, the only thing you're going to do is get a bit more experience out of it. And that's how I ended up where I am. I just kept putting my hand up for stuff and saying, yeah, yes, please. Yes, I'll join the Navy and yes, I'll go on a submarine, which is something I did. I spent 2 weeks on a submarine going from Perth to Sydney. Who gets to do that? So few people. It was amazing. And I learned in that time, in that little 2 weeks, how to survive without showering, how to live in very close quarters to people who all stink. It was crazy. And how to live in a space this big. Literally, I slept in a torpedo bay. They put a torpedo in the tube, then laid down a plank, put a mattress on it, a little thin mattress, and that was my bed for 2 weeks. It's incredible. And that's because I put my hand up and said, yeah, I'll give it a crack. I don't want to be a submariner, but I'll give it a go. And I learned stuff out of that. That was cool, you know. So yeah, that. Sorry, that was a lot. I can't sum that up in one word.
No, it is fantastic advice. Yeah, just putting your hand up, saying yes to stuff. Like, yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. I know it's definitely helped me as well get to where I am. So yeah, definitely great advice.
And the thing is, that doesn't stop, right? As well, don't like when you get to somewhere. Like I could not be happier. I mean, my dream job, sweet as. Am I stopping at volunteering? Absolutely not. Every opportunity that comes. Do you know what? Okay, this is insane, right? I'd spent 2 years doing my job and I got a phone call that said, hey, the Invictus Games is coming to town. Do you want to be a part of it? And I was such a baby. I'm like, oh, they're like, it's going to be a national live broadcast and an international live broadcast of Prince Harry's Invictus Games. Can you be part of that live broadcast? And I was terrified. I thought, well, it's got nothing to do with the weather. But you know what? Yeah, I'll give it a go. I stood in a stadium in Sydney. I forget how many it was. I think it's like 15,000 people around me, standing, speaking. And somebody said to me, how does it feel knowing the Queen is watching you right now? I was like, insane. But the point is that even when you get to where you want to be, keep volunteering for stuff and more amazing things could potentially happen.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think we'll finish with one last one again from Tim. Unless anyone has any burning questions they want to ask, so quickly throw them in the chat. But Tim asks, aside from your fantastic job, do you have any weird and wonderful hobbies?
I am a hobby nomad. I do all sorts of things. Hold on. I did some upholstery the other day. I reupholstered a chair. Check out the avocados. How cool are they? This weekend, I got to sewing. I don't have any left. Oh, actually, maybe I do. Yeah. I bought some random fabric and made scrunchies and gave them to all of the ladies at work. I read. What else? Oh, I knit. Oh, wait, I've got something else to show you. Look. I made this. A hand-knitted blanket.
Oh, look at that.
And it's not like I'm unlucky. I get too interested in things and just run down them for a little bit and then change my mind and go somewhere else. So I don't have the one hobby that I hold on to. I don't know all of those are particularly crafty, but they're all things that have been happening largely because of lockdown, and so they're sort of restricted to what I can do in my home. But I get out and do some hiking from time to time. Tons of hobbies, and I like that I do a bunch of weird stuff. It's fun. It keeps me interested, and you never know where it's going to take you as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I may knit the world's first avocado scrunchie. I don't know. And it could be the best business idea in the world. Who knows?
That's excellent. You've got my investment if you want to.
Cool. So all of my angel investors here, right? You're in at the ground level. Done. Brilliant.
I think that just speaks testament to the students, the alumni that we have in the NYSF as well. You go to the NYSF and I mean, my first impression was just oh my gosh, everyone's going to be so much smarter than I am. So they're just going to be super sciencey and all that. And yes. You get there and they're all, well, yes, everyone is their own brand of smart, and we're all nerds, right? But everyone's got these weird and wacky, wonderful hobbies. The amount of musicians, the amount of sporty people that were there, it's fantastic. Yeah, and it's really important, I think, to cultivate some things to do that aren't your science. That when you get home, you need to find a way to unwind, and it's a good idea to have some stuff to turn to, even if it's just you're a real movie buff and you just want to watch, every single James Bond every summer or whatever it is. I don't know.
yeah, having something outside of your work is so equally important to help make you a complete person and to help keep your brain moving on other things, because you never know where a bit of inspiration will come from. I mean, like, there are mathematicians that have come up with entirely new ways of thinking by knitting, because you can knit planes with, that couldn't be described mathematically until somebody decided to figure out how to describe them mathematically. Like, important.
Fantastic. Well, I think that wraps us up for tonight. We've got no more questions coming in. So thanks so much, everyone, for coming along. Thank you to you, Nate, as well. This has been an absolute pleasure, and I hope everyone else has enjoyed it as much as I have. We've got, once you exit out of the meeting, we've got a post survey for you to fill in so we can get some feedback, help to improve these Alumni Connect sessions. I think that's about it. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and yeah,
I'm off to bed. I'm up at 3 a.m. So all of you have a great night and stay safe, and thanks for coming along.
Thank you. Thanks, Nate.
Cheers, Connor.